pursued but transformed her purpose, which was this dream seeded within her, into a reality. That in and of itself is an incredible, incredible story to tell and embody. But she's also now being a guide for others to do the same. Welcome, Eda. How are you today?
Thank you, Melissa. I am very well. And I had a very interesting aha moment thinking about the word curious, because everybody asked me why I'm so curious. And I'm like, and I felt a bit like, gosh, why am I this way? And then I looked at the word curious, I Googled it. And do you know the root of the word is from caring, to care.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, it's because I care.
I love that. You know, in all this time, I've never thought to look up the sort of, and I think the word is etymology of the word, like the origin of the word. So thank you. And your curious nature led you there. I love the fact that it's rooted in the energy of care, because at least in the way that I'm inspired to cultivate and to create spaces for curiosity is exactly that. It's like to care about intention, to care about source, like where are people coming from, to care to understand. But actually what goes beyond understanding is to care to know the other person, whether or not you can accept or not accept, whether or not you can understand them is a whole different thing. Sometimes we got to let go of the need to understand and just be able to be with somebody in their truth. And I got to learn about you. I've got to experience and take in your magic through Clubhouse. But before we go there, I would love, of course, I can introduce you and what you do, but I think it's far more powerful if I invite you to introduce yourself. And I would go with the why you do what it is you do, because by describing why, you also get to tell people what. So Eda, why do you do what you do?
Why do I write? Because I was born to write. And it was something that I forgot about, because even though I was always curious and I was always asking about where words come from, my parents, in their wanting to protect me, led me down a completely different path, into a path of academics and medicine and biology. And so I got sidetracked. But now I'm recovering that gift one word at a time by showing up and writing at least a word every day. And what I like to write is memoir, biography, because I am very curious about not my own life, but the lives of those people around me. And it was my curiosity which really attracted me to you on Clubhouse, because you ran a club. What was it called? Oh, of course.
Being fearless and curious.
That's it.
So for those of you who don't know what Clubhouse is, it's a social audio app that was pretty much born, I think, just before the global pandemic hit in 2020. It ran as a beta version, and it kind of spread like wildfire across the world, because obviously everybody was locked at home, and it was a beautiful way for us to connect with other people across the world, and like a live podcast. And actually that gave birth to this podcast. But back to this moment right now here with you, Eda, and how we came to meet, but more importantly, your mission and purpose. So you said that you're recovering your dream one word at a time. I love the way that you express that. And you are a writer, and in particular, you help, or you coach, we do both. You help people write their memoirs.
Yes.
Why? Why is this important to you?
Yeah, because I guess from my own curiosity to get to know myself better. Because I realized when I started writing that I did not really know myself. And I looked at the events in my life and I started asking my relatives, so here's what I thought happened. And they would have a completely different take on how that event unfolded. Then I was like, hold on a minute. Do I really know what I know? And then I started to dig a little bit deeper, go a little bit deeper. And then I started discovering that I was very reactive in a lot of the stuff that I was doing in my life. I was not the hero. I was not the one. I was not the one leading my life, but just reacting to whatever was happening around me, whatever people were dumping onto me.
Mm.
So I started to clean up my language that I speak to myself with. And the transformation really began when I started to speak out on Clubhouse. Through speaking out and having my attitudes reflected back to me by coaches that I came across, like yourself, I really cleaned up my language, the language that I use with myself. And that reflected onto me becoming more creative and writing more, and just accepting that I have this gift and I need to honor who I am, even though if people say, oh, look, art, writing, gosh, what a bunch of fluff. That's their stuff. For me, it's very real. It's what brings the magic into my life. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be having fun going forward.
Mm. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. That is very powerful. And we live our reality, right? We live our reality. So much of our reality, as you mentioned, is conditioned by the words of others, predominantly our parents. Our parents bring us up to the best of their capacity with what they know. They guide us, they create this container, and they create this reality that we adopt. But that's the word, we adopt it. Some parts of that reality aren't really ours. And until you create that safe space, just like you did, to reflect on, okay, that's what I'm being told. Oh, art is fluffy. Art is like, maybe irresponsible, and you tune in and you're like, that doesn't feel right to me. Then you start to question whether somebody else's truth is your truth, right? It's not about diminishing anybody's truth. Whoever it is that's saying that, that's real for them, but it doesn't mean it's real for you. And when you can own that truth, that through curiosity, through inquiry, through asking, like, is this my truth? Until we can claim that, we're constantly giving our power away to other people to create our reality through their words. So the fact that you have this mission, this purpose to help others, to support others in writing their memoirs as an adventure of getting to know themselves and exploration is so powerful, because each of us are here to walk our own unique path, right? And I think for some people, they ask, well, if I'm meant to walk in my own unique path, then why am I being conditioned by others? And I always believe that anytime that we are walking away from ourselves, the purpose was we walk away in order to find our way back home again.
Yes. Yes.
And
We have to go through the darkness and the pain to find what feels good and what's light.
so share with me and the listeners today, right? What happened in your life that guided you back to this living your dream, which is writing?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I started to, I was actually really cut off from my family of origin. I was estranged from them and I didn't really speak to them. I didn't really have any relations with them up until COVID. And then because I was so isolated from my friends and from all the distractions, I started to, ask my relatives questions about, oh, when I was growing up, this happened. Do you remember it? And a lot of people, they didn't. It seemed like people just did not remember all the things that I was holding on to. So that made me realize that maybe I have this gift of remembering things. I don't quickly forget. It doesn't quickly get pushed into the subconscious like it does for a lot of people. So it's always a bit closer to the surface. So I said, well, okay, if I have this memory, then maybe I need to start writing it. And maybe that will help other people remember the bond that we shared. And so I started with my mother, with whom I didn't really have a close relationship with up until maybe 2 years ago. And now we have an awesome relationship. And a lot of it is through you, Melissa, because you inspired me through your relationship with your mother, who came on Clubhouse, who spoke with you, despite the intergenerational gap. And I thought, oh, my mother will never understand me because we grew up in such different places culturally, such different eras. And there's no way that we'll ever be able to connect. I thought it was impossible until I saw that it was possible through listening to you and your beautiful
Oh,
mother who had a birthday today, I believe.
absolutely. My goodness, of all the days for us to connect and record this podcast, you're right. It's my mom's birthday today. And I remember you being in that room when mom and I were having this conversation. But really, I really want to celebrate you right now in this moment. I had not realized just how amazing your relationship with your mom has become. The healing journey you've been on, that is the most beautiful gift anybody could ever have, is to heal their relationship they have with their mother. And knowing that it's possible is absolutely the biggest step that anyone can take. It's just simply knowing it is a possibility. I can't wait
It's
to hear more about
possible.
this. Please, Eda, tell us, share more. Let us know. Tell us
Yeah,
all.
absolutely. So I just started by listening to my mother. I stopped and listened to my mother. And I know that sounds pretty basic, but I was a girl who never listened to my mother because what did she know? She came from a completely different age and she had no idea about the realities of growing in the US because she'd grown up in Turkey. So there was all
Mm,
of these cultural differences between us. So I had tuned her out completely, not realizing that we share this common bond of being mother and daughter and also of being women and our experiences, no matter where we go around the world, there is that kinship between all women that I now feel, which I was pretty much cut off from. And so
amazing.
I started also this journey of being proud of being a woman. I was a little bit ashamed of it. I didn't think as a woman I was as good as a man. And I thought I had to embrace all the masculine qualities, like, just being unstoppable and just being there all the time and doing everything and doing and just
That
running and running.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and not stopping to receive or look after myself or just appreciate my feminine beauty. And I was really cut off from those things. I just thought I had to keep doing and being functional and serving all the time without care for stopping to be curious and caring for myself.
Beautiful. My goodness. So you said, I listened. I really
Yeah.
listened. And I believe that listening is such an underrated, undervalued, and under-resourced quality. I'm not even going to say it's a skill. It's a quality. And I believe that we all have it because that's all we could do when we were little ones, before we could speak, right? When we were really, really little, we felt, we sensed, and we listened. We picked up on those vibrations. And silence can be deafening, can't it? When someone is not speaking, most of the time we're feeling quite uncomfortable. I don't know. I am, at least. I'm normally feeling quite fidgety. But over the years, as I've allowed myself to be curious with the silence, then we hear what we get to hear where words are limiting. And what I mean by that is we get to really listen for what words cannot describe. We really get to connect with each other on a different level. And what you said there about, what would my mom know? It's like almost like you'd already made a decision that she's so far away from your reality, she would never understand. And then shifting that into, well, she might bring a different take on things because she comes from a different reality, and giving yourself the opportunity to tap into her inner wisdom of life experience that doesn't change no matter what the situation is. What were some of the biggest things that you learned about, I'm going to say, not just about, but through and from your mom by listening to her?
Yeah, that, feminine strength were so powerful. And I used to always confuse, I would think that she was weak because my dad had all these demands and, things for her to accomplish. And she would just, sometimes of the month, she'd be too tired and she'd just rest. And I thought that was weakness. And I had no idea. And I put myself up to the patriarchal standard that my dad held, and that a lot of men mistake, that we're supposed to operate just like men, and we're not, we're not going to have certain times where we just need to be resting a lot more. So I became quite dysfunctional because I was burning myself out trying to, fulfill all of these expectations that were unrealistic for me, because I operate in a different way than other people do. And just kind of realizing my cycles, my optimal times when I operate the best, and also keeping track of which day I'm on my period, things like that, that I'd completely forgotten about, that came back into my consciousness. And then I really started to really be my best friend, be on my side. I started to be there for myself for the first time, through listening to my mother and understanding some of the frustrations and difficulties she had with my father. And also with sort of not allowing herself in some ways as well, because we're all sort of forced into this. I mean, the world is set up in a way that doesn't really understand the nuances and, the power of listening and receiving. And,
Yes.
we're taught that doing and speaking out, that's power, and everything else is weakness. So it really kind of made me more of a whole person who's able to listen and stop and rest.
That's incredible. Tapping into your inner power and your inner wisdom and your inner truth. And in doing that, reconnecting with your inner power to show up as you with that fearless authenticity. I'm going to use those two words, really, to just show up as you, knowing that nothing, no one, and definitely no system is going to define you. And the only way that it can define you is if you allow it. I love that you're talking about patriarchy, because it's very important for us to hold that awareness, right? These systems that are created that are very much grounded in masculine type energies. So very structured, very all about hustle, do, take action, take action, take action. And when I say structured, okay, structure is important. Structures and systems are important for organization, for efficiency, but we're also not robots. We're also not a spreadsheet, right? And the importance is being able to integrate and always be in this dance of having structure, but being able to flow. And that's the beauty of the feminine that you talked about, and honoring ourselves as women and taking the lead, or rather, I should say, allowing ourselves to be guided even by our own bodies with our cycles. You talked about resting. When women track their menses, their periods, their moon cycles, however it is that you around the world, ladies listening, however it is you refer to it, when we track it, right, we get to claim our power again, because our moon cycles, our periods are showing us when is our most literally productive time, not just to make babies, ladies and gentlemen listening, but, productive time to show up and show up fully in the world, take action, but more importantly, those times in our cycle when it's time to rest, to sit back, to receive. And then there's the period literally of shedding, letting go. And then the period of gestation, where ideas, it's not an idea necessarily to let go. It's not an idea to take action on. And it's not an idea necessarily to nurture, but an idea to simply sit with and allow for it to take its course. I absolutely love that you've brought this into the conversation, Eda. And I love how you're sharing by listening to your mom. She was able to show you what her struggles were in the patriarchal system with your dad and the culture. And in doing so, that brought light to you, that you could shift that so that this pattern isn't propagated in the next generation. And you mentioned this in the questions that I'd asked you earlier about stopping, breaking the pattern. I'd love it if you could share a little bit about that, because obviously we inherit, right? Our parents bring us up a certain way, they condition us. And if we, without awareness, we repeat the pattern. How is that different for you? And I know that you're a mother too. So what has been
Yeah.
the impact of that for you?
Yeah. So I really pause a lot more than I think my mother allowed herself to, so that I have, so that I'm serving my girls with my goodness and not my shortness and frustration and impatience. So I can be a lot more present for them. And also, sometimes they ask me questions about womanhood, and they are very curious little girls. And I allow them to ask those questions, and already they know about periods and they're 4 and 6. But you know what? It's because they live with me, they see it. They can't help but see what's happening. And one of them uses the bathroom with me. So of course she sees. And I answer her question. Whereas with my mother and I thought it was something that I could never talk about because I thought it was shameful and I would never bring that up. But
Mm.
my girls are able to ask those questions, receive answers, and we can have a conversation. I feel like the future is bright for women. We're not ashamed of our parts. We're not ashamed of how our body works, and we're able to have these conversations now. I'm really grateful for that.
That is such a beautiful gift that you're giving to your children, your girls, but also to yourself, right? Because apart from being their mother and apart from them being your children, which is an infinite bond, an unbreakable bond, you are nurturing and cultivating friendship and sisterhood, not sisters, but sisterhood, and helping to break these old patterns of silencing, muting, and shaming that comes around being a woman and the cycles and seasons that women have to live through. Incredible, Eda. So, so beautiful. Thank you for being a model for conscious parenting. And I'm curious to know how your inner child has shown up in this experience too, because at the end of the day, you know how I feel about adulting, right? At the end of the day, we're all just big kids trying to figure things out. And when we heal, or at least show a curiosity to transforming the relationship and the belief systems that we have around our parents and our mothers in particular as women, um, how did that impact your relationship and connection with your inner child?
Wow, my inner child shows up a lot. And the good thing is, I'm not reactive about it. I don't react out of the inner child. I can recognize that it's the inner child and there's a need there that hasn't been met. And I can go back and journal about it. However, it doesn't mean I always get it right. I do sometimes get really triggered that I have to speak out. When I speak out, though, I usually say something like, okay, what you just did hurt me because I felt like you weren't listening to me. However, sometimes when I deliver this to people like my brother, this is the latest episode,
Okay, okay. You can
because he
send
was
him
brought
this
up in
pod.
the same,
You
yeah,
can send him this podcast when it comes out with so much love.
yeah, absolutely. Because his emotional needs weren't met either.
Yes.
He's not able to take that on board. Whereas other people are able to understand that there was a sensitivity within me that came up, and we're able to have a conversation about it without, blaming anyone. Can just
Mm.
try to figure out, how we can go forward. Whereas with people who have grown up in households where their emotions weren't always heard, when I say, I was hurt, I'm speaking up because I felt hurt that you did this, it can become quite triggering and confronting. So I noticed that. And yeah, so my brother and I were working on it. I'm keeping a gratitude journal for him every day for the next 90 days because it takes about 90 days to change some patterns.
It
I'm
does.
writing something about him that I'm grateful about. He doesn't have to do the same. However, I feel like me making that change and being a lot more grateful for him, it automatically makes some sort of shift in our relationship. So I'm just working on my end.
That is, oh my gosh, Eda. I'm so grateful for everything that you're doing because folks who are listening, when we dive, take the plunge, surrender into our own transformational and healing journey, you got to do it for yourself first. It's all about you. That I would say to you, own that selfishness, what society claims is selfish. You know what? Own it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
your personal healing journey, right, Eda, at the end of the day is going to create this ripple effect. Like you just said, I'm starting this gratitude journal for my brother, right? Whether he does it or not, doesn't matter. You're doing it because you are now sending out a new vibration out there. And like it or
Yeah.
not, it's going to impact him. How it shows up in him is going to be different. And being open to how it shows up is going to be very important because we all have expectations. It's perfectly normal to have expectations. The key is to not be attached to the outcome. Exactly. And this, I don't like the word work, but just for convenience sake, I'm going to use the word work. When you put the work in, oh no, I can rephrase it. When we put effort into something, we can be guaranteed of an outcome that is fulfilling because your intention is so incredibly pure. And that inner child that you're talking about, oh my goodness, the language that you are speaking with, right, is something that so many of us are not used to. So when we create this kind of intervention almost with language where you're owning, right? How many of you out there, listeners, go, you said that and you made me feel this? It's always about the other person, the blame. But what I heard you say, Eda, is like, I feel this way when you said that. So it's like factual. When that person said something, I feel this. You're claiming, you're making a claim for yourself and then expressing that experience that you are having with someone else. It's so, so beautiful. But when people are not used to that, of course, they're going to feel triggered because it's almost like, okay, hang on, how do I respond to that? I'm so used to being blamed where I can now react that now, what do I say? And then your ability, Eda, to just hold space to that, I'm literally in awe. I'm so, I want to say, surprised by our podcast conversation today because my expectation was to simply learn more about you in terms of as a writer. And we're going deep, as we always do, without plan, into your personal experience. And I'm so grateful for how open you're being about this and bringing your writing into your everyday. Writing this gratitude journal. Folks, if you're listening, this is something you could adopt. If you want to heal, improve, maybe the word heal is not something that resonates with you, improve, bring more love into a relationship with a sibling or a family member, starting a gratitude journal. And I'm now going to guide this conversation so that Eda can share with us a little bit more about her writing service, right? Not just with memoirs, but how that looks and feels and all the ways that you can get in touch with Eda so that you can have her support, not just for writing, but your personal growth through writing with her as your coach or your guide. So Eda, tell us
All
a
right.
little bit more about your service.
Yes. So I offer Write Club to anyone who has a book in their head, but they haven't had the time to write it. Now you can write it with me and with other intentional writers just by dropping into a link on Zoom.
And we'll make sure that from this podcast, you have all the different ways that you can connect with Eda. Actually, there's one very important question that I haven't asked today that's crucial, which is, what were some of the biggest challenges and risks that you've had to take in order to step away from the conditioned beliefs you had about who you are, how you needed to show up in the world, and the jobs or career that you had to do? What kind of stereotypes in a way and labels did you have to break through in a way in order to lead this beautiful, purposeful, passion-filled, service-driven life that you now lead?
Yeah, I had to leave behind who I thought I was, which I thought I was like this super organized, somebody who ticks all the boxes and does everything on time and super responsible, not fun. just, one of those people who just makes sure everybody's doing the right thing and supervising and, dotting all the T's and putting all the dots on the I's, all of that. I had to leave that behind and embrace the fun side of me. And that started in a playground, actually, playground of dreams. So when I joined you in the playground of dreams and discovered my childhood dreams, and I could see them so vividly, then fun really started to come into my life. And oh my gosh, I'm not looking that I'm just moving forward towards the fun and the bliss, and I'm loving it. It's bringing so many more people that I'm aligned with, that I'm doing a lot more meaningful work, and I'm doing more of it, which is what I love.
And I can see it in you. For those of you who are only listening to the audio podcast, you want to get in on the YouTube channel very soon in the next couple of weeks so that you can see the light and the joy and the passion that is beaming through Eda that I get to see right now. I am so grateful that you are living the gift.
I am.
And that you discovered that through Playground of Dreams, which is my group coaching program, which has evolved very much since you've been on it, Eda. I'm going to invite you in at some point to showcase who you are and share your experience to all future participants as an inspiration and a role model. But aside from that, more importantly, I'd love for you to share with everybody about Live the Gift. What
Well,
is
I
Live the
have it
Gift?
here. It's a book. Well, it's become my life philosophy. It's a book, and Melissa is in it. And, all these people around me who have come such a long way and who've taught me so much about myself, they're all in this book. It was such a pleasure writing it, because it literally meant talking to my favorite people and hearing their stories. So what a pleasure. It wrote itself, I can say. And yeah, whenever I feel like I'm not living the gift, I just go back into it and read a few pages, and I'm like, oh, now I see. Now I can get on with living the gift and leave the shit behind.
And you know what? I'm so deeply honored to have a place in your book, which is also part of your legacy, Eda. We are intrinsically and infinitely intertwined. Thank you so much for giving me the honor to be in the book, Live the Gift. And folks, you want to make sure you get your hands on that copy. In fact, I'm reminded myself today that I need to order a few copies, and I'm going to ask, would you sign them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so, so much. Could you tell us a little bit more about Live the Gift? I know you were saying that
Yeah.
you're featuring the people that who have, well, actually I'm not going to say it through your words. Tell us a little bit more of what people can expect from Live the Gift.
All right. So from Live the Gift, expect to be inspired. Okay. I believe we all have a gift, and it's the gift that trips us up in life. It could be your big heart, your curiosity, your big emotions. Like, I liken the gift, how it manifested in my life, to Dumbo's big ears. I was always tripping up over, I was always, because I had such big emotions, I was so sensitive, and I was picking up all of these stories around me. I was always getting caught up in other people's drama and tripping up, and not able to regulate my emotions, not realizing that that was the gift. My sensitivity was the gift. It's what creates my writing. It's what gives shape to how I see the world. And I didn't realize that. And this book is about other people who've walked a similar path, or who have discovered and owned who they are, to live their purpose, which is really to be themselves. So if you're ever needing a reason to be yourself, there are 14 reasons in Live the Gift. It's these stories of people who have taken that step and are living who they are, their gift.
Thank you, Eda, for living the gift, not just living the gift, your gift, but writing about what that looks and feels like, showcasing other people who've inspired you, and then continuing to walk this path to support others to live their gift. You are a guide for transformation through writing and storytelling. Truth. Each person's soul's truth. What could be more powerful? Because really, historically, human connection really begins from storytelling, right? It's sharing our experiences. And for all the traumas that we've walked, and trauma exists on a spectrum. There is not, I can't imagine there's one person on this planet who doesn't have some level of trauma. The most powerful way for us to transform that trauma is through sharing the story. So thank you for helping so many people do that. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
That's it. Nothing else comes to mind. This has been such a beautiful chat. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always such a pleasure to connect with you, Melissa.
I appreciate you so much, Eda. One last question has come to my mind, of course. How could I not mention this? I asked you, if you were a song, what song would you be? I'd love it if you would share with everybody the song you chose. And in a way, I'm like, the title to me seemed obvious, but also it's only obvious because I have had the privilege to spend some really beautiful, intimate time together. So I have a sense of who you are. Although today I've learned so much about your journey since we've had that time together in Playground of Dreams. So I'll recap again. I asked you if you were one song, what song would it be? Please share with our listeners today what the song is and why.
Hold on, the song changes all the time. And I'm just wondering, what did I write? Because right now, The One comes to mind because that's I've been listening to that song every day when I showed up for my writing to remind me that I'm the one writing my life. I'm the one creating it.
Oh, thank you. The One is a song written by me and folks listening to the podcast. It's the opening music and the closing music to the podcast as well. Eda.
So that's the one that comes now.
Oh, my gosh, my heart is full. Seriously. What is the purpose of writing this music, especially the song, other than for this? It's like, okay, we need to meet more often than just once every 6 months, first of all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting everybody know and for connecting with that song. When I asked you this a while back, the song you put down, because you just responded, you went, oh, well, what is it? It changes. The song was Changes.
Oh! Yeah.
So I guess you don't need to explain that, right? Because look.
Look, here's what happens with me, right? I go into my day with an intention, and sometimes I plan everything down to the minute, and I make all those like little calculations in my head. But then when I'm talking to the person, their reality is completely different, so I change my tune. And I think you have to. If you don't, then oh my God, you're not going to get a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah, that agility, right? To be able to just the nuance of just shifting and tweaking something without being so rigid to your plan, but at the same time, without beating yourself up when you do need to make that tweak is absolute grace and mastery. Eda, thank you so, so much.
Thank you
for being with us today on the Fearlessly Curious podcast. My friends listening, our friends listening, make sure if your curiosity was sparked, which I'm pretty damn sure it was, at the very minimum, you want to connect with Eda on Instagram, and you will not lose out by signing up to her newsletter, because experience it first. Before you make a decision, this is not for me, I invite you to lean into your curiosity, sign up, because you can always unsubscribe anytime you like. But
that's right.
Get a flavor, get a taste, be curious fearlessly, because you never know, you might be surprised and you might just gain an entire new playground to play in and a beautiful community where you're going to learn through other people's stories, not just about who they are, but more about who you are and also who you're not. Eda, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so, so very much.
Thank you.
And until next time, everybody, remember to stay fearlessly curious.